Have you ever bought a car that you dreamed of driving into your old age, but then ending up scrapping it only like after a year? It's really tough to separate the brands that hold up with all the hunks of junk on the road these days. But fear not, we're gonna take you through some of the worst car brands that you should never, ever think about buying. We're gonna tell you exactly which cars will put you into a lot of danger and other cars that could leave you in a roadside ditch. Yeah, here are 8 car brands that you should avoid at all costs. Let's go. This Korean manufacturer, the parent company of Kia and Genesis, is notorious for producing cheap vehicles. And some of their engines seize more than an epileptic in a European techno club. Hyundai has had such a problem with engine seizures that Hyundai and Kia had to recall an embarrassing 1.2 million vehicles in 2017. And this was all due to a faulty engine bearing that they threw into 4 different models. That's like McDonald's after they've sold like 1 million Big Macs that they shouldn't put rat poisoning in their sauce. Luckily, I don't get the Mac sauce on my Big Macs. Does that make me weird? Yes. Don't worry, there's no poison in Big Macs. I checked. But I could tell for a second you were about to Google it, weren't you? Anyway, it wasn't after they sold over 1 million of these vehicles that they realized that they were rolling out death traps. And among these models was the notoriously horrible Hyundai Sonata, which, if you think about it, makes sense, since Sonata is actually short for, so not a car you should drive if you value your life. These rickety rigs have some of the most unreliable engines in the industry, and driving one of these is basically as safe as driving with your eyes closed. Did I just hit something? Can't see it, so didn't happen. What? If you're watching this and you own a Sonata, please don't throw away all hope and start driving with your eyes closed. Not a good idea. Just get a different vehicle. But just do not, absolutely under no circumstances, buy another Hyundai, which rhymes with Sunday. That's how you remember it. And next up is a brand that a lot of you own and love. A Nissan Altima is a thief's best friend. In 2019 alone, they recalled over 300,000 Altimas because there was a problem with the door latch not locking. And it was so bad that they were even opening randomly in some cases. And you might be saying, oh, maybe they just overlooked the door latch once and fixed it later. Nope. Nissan issued a recall for the same issue 2 years earlier, in 2017. Really, Nissan? You can't get a door to lock properly? Do better, man. Do better.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
And yet, faulty doors are not the only problem with Nissan vehicles. See, owners have been complaining for years about cracking radiators, destroying their transmissions, and the CVTs themselves being faulty, as if owning a CVT wasn't bad enough. And as we would say here, it's less than ideal, which if you want to pick up one of these limited edition Ts, go snag one for yourself. It's way better than driving a Nissan, and probably more comfy. Because rather than addressing the problem with the CVTs, Nissan just continued to roll out piles of garbage. There's even reports of Nissan sunroofs exploding at random. Congratulations, your crappy cars have actually defied all laws of the universe in the quest to become the most terrifying cars on the market. So unless you're into the idea of having shards of glass rain down on you at any moment, don't even pick up the keys to a Nissan. It's way better to go with a strong, reliable American brand like Jeep, right? Well, maybe not. Jeeps have become fashion statements for middle-aged mothers and suburban teens. But anyone who's serious about buying a reliable ride knows that a Jeep at some point in its life is gonna end up in the trash heap. And probably the worst of all Jeeps is the Cherokee, which just in 2019 had a recall because of its fuel supply tubes posed a serious fire risk. Yeah, they say it was hotter than your last Tinder date. Wait, was she even hot? And whether or not you want to have flames custom painted on the side of your Jeep, I think that we can all agree that having your engine burst into flames is not cool. I guess it's a Jeep thing you wouldn't understand. And if you bought a Jeep because you wanted to take it off-road, this defect could cause a full-blown forest fire. What would Smokey the Bear have to say about this Jeep?
Remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
And for a company that builds vehicles that supposedly should take on any terrain, Jeeps have entirely too many problems with their suspension. Jeep owners have even coined a phrase to refer to the feeling of driving a Jeep with a shoddy suspension: the death wobble. That's right, these so-called off-roading rigs are well known for their lousy front axles that cause the car to shake so violently that you'll probably need a barf bag. Blech. So forget the fashion statement for a minute. Jeep is cheap, and maybe Jeep is a heap. And maybe for us city folks, avoiding a big bad Jeep is pretty easy. We'd much rather have a fun, sporty, and easy to park Mini. Notice, I didn't say safe. Minis may look all cute and innocent, but don't be fooled. These little devils are a crash waiting to happen. The #1 reported problem with Minis is the power steering pump. And steering, you know, is pretty important when it comes to driving a car. Yeah, Mini had a recall on Mini Coopers in 2015 because the faulty power steering components continually caused fatal and near fatal accidents. Come to think of it, Mini Coopers are kind of like raccoons. They may look all cute and cuddly, but they are truly evil when you get to know them. Sorry, raccoons. Not sorry, Mini. Aside from their shortcomings in the steering department, Minis also have quite a bit of trouble keeping their timing chains tight. I've had the same bicycle since I was a kid, and its chain still works perfectly fine. And maybe you think it's just British companies like Mini that make defective driving machines. But no. A car company that's become synonymous with American made is actually putting out some of the worst whips in the world. Ford's marketing MO has always been to convince you, the buyer, that they're the standard for American production quality. But Ford, time and time again, have shown how many corners they're willing to cut just to save a buck, which equates to putting drivers into my middle name. I mean, into danger. See, driving a Ford Explorer is about as safe as exploring the Amazon with nothing but a broken compass. In 2018, around 1.3 million Explorers were recalled due to carbon monoxide leaks. So unless you like being poisoned while driving to school or work, I would suggest staying as far away as possible from these rolling bioweapons. And that's not even all. In 2019, Ford had a recall on the Explorer again, this time because of fractures in the rear toe link. Essentially, what that means is there were 1.2 million Explorers honking around that couldn't steer properly. That's a great thought. For a company that claims to be all American made, Ford sure seems to have safety of the American public pretty low on the priority list. In fact, even some of Ford's safety features have been known to do more harm than good. Starting in 2019, Ford had to recall not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different models due to exploding airbags. It's just a little bit concerning when something that's supposed to keep you safe might blow up in your face. So let's see. Ticking time bombs, unsteerable steering wheels, and poison gas? I think it's best we just all forget about Ford, but they're far from the only American automaker that you want to avoid at all costs. Another car brand with an oh so fitting name, because you want to dodge, dip, dive, duck, and dodge these death traps at all costs. And it doesn't matter if you see them on the highway or in the used car lot. Dodge, like Jeep, is owned by parent company Chrysler Fiat. So it should come as no surprise that Dodge trucks are also known to get that dreaded death wobble. And what's even scarier is that death wobble only starts up when Dodge trucks are going at least highway speeds. Yeah, think about that for a second. You really are gonna have to dodge it. Because by the time that the driver starts to feel that truck shudder, they're already moving too fast to stop safely. I hope that doesn't give you nightmares about driving a Dodge truck, because if that doesn't, well, they also had a problem with oil sludge buildup, causing engines and models from the early 2000s to fail spontaneously. And many of these same engines had problems with leaking coolant as well. So unless you fancy a car-destroying cocktail of oil and coolant mummifying your engine, do yourself a favor and dodge a Dodge. And that brings us to Dodge's little trucking-making devil child, Ram. Originally a spin-off of Dodge, Ram became its own brand in 2010. But it's still very clear that the two companies still share a passion for making subpar pickups. In 2019, the Ram 3500 was rated the least reliable vehicle that you could buy on the US market. And after hearing about all the other unreliable rides on this list, that should scare the hell out of you. And despite being recalled more times than we care to keep track, the 3500 had repeated transmission issues, ranging from full-on breakdowns to faulty seals and filters. Seriously, these pickup trucks had more fluid leaks than your bedwetting little brother. And Ram, like Ford, was also wrapped up in the exploding airbag scandal. And it's interesting because Ram trucks are marketed as being durable, powerful trucks for the working man. But in reality, they're just gonna be running you back and forth from the mechanic over their short lifespan. And they might even end up blowing your face off. So get rid of that Ram. It could end up saving your life, or at least a pretty penny. And Ram's a newcomer on the block, but an old and gold brand, one of the oldest and most historic of all time, is GM. It's also one of the worst. With several of the most unreliable brands in the world, like GMC, Chevrolet, Buick, and Cadillac, General Motors is a conglomerate of crap. In 2019, the automotive giant had to recall a whopping 3.5 million trucks and SUVs, and that was due to their failing brake pumps. And I know, some of you have the philosophy of all gas, no brakes. But regardless of how much of a speed demon you are, you're gonna want your brake pumps to work the way they should. And GM vehicles have had some other serious problems, specifically with their transmissions that have resulted in lawsuits. And some of the vehicles involved in these lawsuits include well-known models like the Chevy Silverado, Cadillac Escalade, and GMC Sierra. Some people think that GM has been making crap cars ever since they decided to move a large part of their production to China. And whether or not that's true, there sure has been a definite drop in their quality control over the past decade. It can be difficult to avoid GM vehicles, since they hold about 17% of the US market share. But it's definitely worth taking the time. The time to make sure that the car that you're looking at and you want to buy was made by GM, which might as well just stand for garbage manufacturer. Have you had a problem with any of these brands or manufacturers? We want to know about your experience below. Maybe you've experienced Jeep's dreaded death wobble for yourself, or maybe you got yourself a couple of stitches from the Nissan sunroof explosion. Hit us with your best horror stories in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because we have all the car buying content that you can handle. And if you enjoyed the vid, hit the like button, and if you disliked it, don't just hit the dislike once, hit it twice. Really let us know, and stay safe, my fellow motorheads. This is Brad Danger signing off, and as always, keep living the ideal lifestyle.